Hey there, my name is Jake Milstein from Critical Insight, and today I'm here with one of our awesome security strategists, Jonathan Inskeep. He used to be the CIO at a hospital. He is now on our team, and one of the things that he's always said was, folks who are in the IT director, CIO seat, CISO seat, always want a better way to represent what their security posture is, how to report it up to the board, how to talk to it around the organization. And so one of the things that we've done is all of our managed detection response customers and our vCISO customers now get access to the CyberSaint platform, which is a great, great GRC tool. And Jonathan's going to show you how it works. Jonathan, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Jake. So this GRC tool is really to help you out in whatever regulatory compliance that you might be trying to follow. If you're a business and you're like, well, I don't really have regulatories, that's okay because these still get you on the best practices for what you should be doing in your environment. For today's demo, we're going to be using the NIST CSF subcategories 1.1. As you can see down here, we have the 5 domains as we land on the dashboard. The dark blue is our current score that we evaluated as self-assessment, and then the light blue is our targeted. If you want to see more of a categorical view, we can click this button up here. What you'll see in this one that's kind of identified, we've identified some areas on this GRC tool, but we do have some gaps. Now, if you have gaps in your environment, that's a good way to justify that you have some missing controls. Maybe you need a system in place, but really this is where you can actually start having that conversation with your executive suite to help improve your security posture. Moving down on the dashboard, what you will see is we also have the risk report. On this risk report, we're still covering the 5 domains of NIST. And as you will see, we've done mitigated risk, remaining risk, and residual risk. You can hover over it. You can kind of see where your scores are for each one of these environments underneath each one of these domains. And as always, you're always trying to identify risk inside your environment and see what you can do to reduce that. Sometimes you'll have residual risk that you know about, and there's sometimes you can't put a control in place for it. That's just the way it's going to be in your environment, but you've gone through and used this tool to identify it. In the data protection priorities, as you can see, as we filled this out, I took this more of a healthcare setting because that's my background. But what we have here is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. This is how we rated how these controls will actually impact these types of data sets as we answer the controls a little bit later on. And then you'll also see that this is how, on this report right here, how it impacts business, right? It affects our financial, operational, reputational, and regulatory and legal. And this will change as we answer those questions, but an easy view in on how our data content that we resides in our organization, how a breach can actually impact us. And then a threat type report of how this can impact our environment. So moving on from the dashboard and help you better understand how this assessment is used, we're going to jump into controls. Like I said, we're using the NIST CSF subcategories 1.1. These are the power controls. And so what you end up with is 108 controls through your assessment in your environment. As you answer the controls, you can see that it gives you a scoring depending upon how you self-assess. We're going to go ahead and jump into the network baseline. And I pre-answered these questions to be able to make this a demo environment, but we can change these at any point in time if we needed to. Like we can go ahead and clear this answer. And then as we go to answer this, what are we trying to accomplish with this network baseline? Well, as you can see through number 1 up here at the top, a network baseline of network operations and expected data flows for users and system is established and managed. Well, how are we doing in our environment? Let's say we're partially got that managed, but our target score, of course, where we always want to be is we want to be at the top of the list. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that as fully. Through your scoring process, you can go ahead and add in how much it would cost for us to either hire a third consultant to help address this control concerns, or if we did it in-house. And then as being an ownership of this assessment, you can look at using the collaboration to where you can assign it to a specific staff member, to yourself if you wanted to. That's exactly what I did, gave it to myself. And then if I need to, I can add other contributors to this control and then assign a due date. There's also a place down here for compliance notes. So if you want to put some notations in, you can go ahead and save those in that environment. As we use this tool, one of the most important things that we always have to do is we have to show the evidence of how we're backing that control. So here we can go ahead and add a link to the evidence that points back to our environment where that evidence can be located, where we answered to the control, whether it's a policy and or a policy with a system in place, like a network control in place that helps answer that question. We can actually use those and using supporting evidence to say, hey, we did complete this control. As we go through, we're going to also give it a risk assessment. So in our environment, we said risk currently for likelihood is low. We think we have the proper controls in place. We don't think that there's a high probability of this happening. However, you can see over on the right-hand side when we look at risk impact, well, if this control fails, obviously we're going to have high impact, right? What we're looking at is we're looking at keeping that regulatory data secure. So if a control fails, it can have a real negative impact to our environment. Through data protection priority, this is where we can change how this applies to the different data sets that we have inside our environment. So if you're saying that the availability is the most important thing for you when it comes to this control, like I said, we are looking at detecting and potential impacts of this event in our environment. So detecting anomalies and events. So how I rated this one is we want to go against availability. Being the most important, how is this going to impact for threat types? It's going to be environmental and structural, but you can go ahead and open this up. If you have any one of these other ones that you want to add in, it's easy just to click them in. If you chose too many, go ahead and click it off. How does this impact the business? As we're looking over here, well, we know that a lot of fallout through a breach can impact the business pretty negatively. We're going to go ahead and add reputational in here as well. So now we are saying that this will impact these 4 areas of our business structure if this control fails. And then you can also assess a financial impact. How is this going to impact our financial setting as a organization as a whole? You can use industry trend lines for how much you've seen that business has been extorted for through breaches. You put a minimum and a max, and then the most likely that you think is going to be what the most likely amount is going to be for your environment. Let's say, okay, we get to the start of this, we look at this, we're not really sure what this control means or what they're wanting us to answer. The good news is through this GRC tool, they also help you out. So we can go to the control description, and here in the description, it's going to give you a description of the things that you should be looking at inside your environment and how best to answer that. These are all backed against the NIST standards. As you can see up here, working against each one of the controls that are in place. There's also a supplemental guidance. This too will actually help you to think about different environments inside your network. Maybe in here they might point out some things that you might need to go back and verify, check to make sure that your controls are set up and properly in place as you go to answer this control. And then overall, what are we trying to do, right? We are trying to detect anomalies and events inside our environment. So this is all centered around you being able to help to provide justification for having a control in place to be able to do this, and then being able to use these guides to help answer that control assessment in your environment. As we click over to policy templates, what you will see, we've got the 5 domains here and an additional as well. But as we expand this out, what you will see, these are policy templates that are best practice policies that we can actually utilize these templates, put them in place to help address some of the controls that we need to answer. But this will help us to build a stronger policy as a whole. If they might have things in the policy where you're like, oh, we didn't think of this before, we should probably add this into our policy, and or maybe they have better word structure than the policy that you have, you can definitely incorporate those. And then through this process, you might be looking at some of these policies and be like, okay, well, this control actually has like-minded policy implications across a couple of controls. So you can actually build a master policy by pulling these and looking at them. and building that master policy for your environment to answer like maybe multiple controls all at once. There's also a history tab. What you will see in here is through this history tab, this will give you manage that change control log in your environment. As you go to use this tool, you'll be able to see what type of changes have taken place over time. So if you have multiple contributors in this utility, you'd be able to see the changes that they made, plus along with your own changes. Moving back up to the control itself, as we come back to the control, you can see the controls once again. However, we're going to go into optimization as one of these tabs up at the top. Through optimization, what you will see is your controls that you answered, areas that you need to work on, and you can quickly click into these. This right here has 32 controls that we want to work on. As you can see, these are the ones that we've already previously rated. These are ones that are deemed high that we need to have a better answer to as we progress forward. We can also do reports in this report structure. I'll bring up one of these reports. We'll do executive reporting because this is also is a tool to help respond to the executives of how we're progressing on our cyber journey. As we click download and this opens up for us, what you will see is in this report, let me just increase the size. This will be a detailed report saying what measures we use to answer these questions within our environment. And as you scroll through, you're going to be able to see that same dashboard that you populated through answering through this assessment tool that as we answered, these populate the charts, and then the executives able to look at this and see that you've made progressive work in your environment. Now, one of the last things about here is creating a snapshot. So let's say in 2023, you put a lot of your information in here, but you didn't quite make it, but you can still snapshot your progress. As it goes into 24, you fill out all of the controls, update any ones that might have changed over the course of 2024. As you get into 2025, now you've got 2 years under your belt of snapshots of showing that you have progression on your cybersecurity progression. And as you work towards that compliancy in your environment, let's say in 2025, things are just rocking, but mid-year, you have a financial audit of your organization, and the financial team wants to say, hey, what are you guys doing for your IT controls? This is where you'd be able to use that snapshot, go back, say, hey, we started in 2023, we're now in 24. We have it completed, and then for 25, showing that you are actually very progressive in your environment, answering the controls, that regulatory controls that have merit in your environment. But even if you get to a point where, let's say you had a breach, CMS is going to come in and they're going to say, what have you been doing inside your network? You'll be able to use it for that process too as well. So justification all across the board for different scenarios of how this dashboard and control set can actually be very helpful to you as you progress. We're going to jump back to the dashboard. And this is where we would leave off for any type of questions that you might have on this utility. At Critical Insight, you'd be working with a security strategist, myself. What we do is we help ensure that the customer knows how to use the tool, and through that process, make sure that you have a progress on the tool as well. So setting up anywhere from 2 to 3 months of correspondence between us to ensure that you're able to make this tool work for you.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're excited about as we get into 2024 is obviously updating this to NIST CSF 2.0. But really, in the end, being able to see your security posture improve, to be able to report that improvement to your board, to your execs, to your shareholders, to your citizens, whoever needs to see that, and be able to have a place where you're keeping everything in case you get into a sticky situation. And, they happen, of course, whether it be an audit or a breach or an insurance question, and we're there for you through that process, and you have this tool. So we're very excited to bring this to our customers. Jonathan, thank you so much. If folks have questions, please feel free to email me Jake at criticalinsight.com. That's Jake at criticalinsight.com. And we look forward to working with you. Thanks much.
Thanks, everyone.